Hello, Sudoku friends. Welcome to a medium difficulty puzzle from sudokuexchange.com on their website. You know the rules. They are very simple. We try to solve the puzzle and that's it. And for this puzzle, I want to try to once again explain exactly what it is that I'm doing when I face a new puzzle. I usually take a few seconds to acquaint myself with a grid just to get kind of a general overview over what's happening. In this case, it's pretty easy because it's a medium puzzle. So it is not supposed to be very difficult, but it's a very good puzzle for demonstration purposes. I don't go by the numbers 1 through 9 because I think that it, generally speaking, slows me down quite a lot. What I do is I look at shoots. I look at these 3 columns. Then I look at these 3 columns and these 3 columns. And I look at these 3 rows, these 3 rows, and these 3 rows. When I look, for example, at columns 7, 8, and 9, I can scan downwards and I immediately see that the 2 3s here block down, so a 3 must go here. It may not be obvious if you're a beginner and you're not used to solving Sudokus without using pencil marks. But once you get used to solving Sudokus this way, you can't help seeing these patterns. They become so obvious that it's almost impossible to imagine that some people don't see that immediately. When I go over here, I see a 5 blocking down and a 5 blocking down here and a 5 blocking over. So it's immediately clear that a 5 must go here. And immediately when I enter this 5, I don't hesitate. I look across here and I see this 5 coming down. So a 5 must go here. Having found so many 5s already, I usually can't resist looking for the last 5s, and I now see that these 2 5s block up and we have a 5 blocking over, so one of these must be a 5. And I move on to the next box here. We still need a 5 here as well. A 5 blocks up and a 5 blocks up and a 5 blocks over, so a 5 must go here. And since I just realized that one of these must be a 5, I don't have to analyze this again. I know that a 5 must go here. Then what I do is I realize that there are 3 empty squares here. So I try to get a fast digit here by just looking at what's missing from the column. And missing is a 1, 6, and a 7. And since this square is blocked by this 7, I know that a 7 must go here or here. And that immediately causes me to look elsewhere for 7s, because now I know that these 2 must be a 7s. I need a 7 for one of these 4 squares here. This 7 blocks down, this 7 blocks down, and now I know that a 7 must go here or here. I don't look any further now, because I will remember that a 7 must go into these 2 squares. Or at least I will usually remember it. It's not always working, but most of the time it is working this way. And since I have to give up on these 3 squares, I just let my eyes wander over the rest of the grid, and I'm attracted to these 2 8s, so they block down, and I see this 8 blocking over, so here's an 8. The next thing I do, of course, is I look to the left, and I see these 2 8s blocking, and therefore an 8 must go here. I immediately look up, and these 8s block, and so does this. Therefore, an 8 goes here. And now I look right. I know that these 8s block here, so one of these is going to be an 8. And I immediately see that these 8s block. So now we have 8 candidates in these 4 squares, and I can't get on with those. But I'm now suddenly realizing that we have a 7 and an 8 here. We have a 7 and 8 here. So we have 7s and 8s for the first 2 rows. We also need a 7 and an 8 for the 3rd row. And quite obviously, they can't go here. So a 7 and an 8 must go in these 2 squares. And now I know that I need to look for something for these 3 squares. And since they can't be 7 and 8, it must be a 1, 2, and a 6. So 2 blocks up, now I know that one of these must be a 2. I immediately look down now to see if I can place a 2 in one of these squares here. And to help me find out whether that is a possibility, I now look for other 2s, and I see this 2 blocking down. And now I know that a 2 must go here or here. And since I can't figure out yet which of these squares is going to be a 2, I immediately let it be and look elsewhere. For some reason, and I can't explain why, my eyes are drawn to these 2 6s. So I know that a 6 must go here or here. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this 6 blocking here. And now I know that a 6 for the first column must go either here or here. It's not very useful at this point in time, but it's something that I will probably remember later on. And sometimes, for good measure, I will now begin looking for other digits for this column. For this column, I only need 4 more digits. So besides a 6, I need a 4 and a 9 and a 2. There's a 4 blocking here and there's a 4 blocking here. So, and actually also a 2. So a 4 must go either here or here. And now I start looking more closely at the 4s, because this 4 blocks over here, this 4 blocks up, and this 4 blocks up. So I'm getting a little closer to figuring out where I'm going to have to place a 4 later on. And now that I'm looking at the 4s, I look around the grid for 4s and I see these 2 4s blocking over. So a 4 goes here. I know that all of this sounds pretty random, and yes, it probably is, but this is the way that I solve sudokus. And most of the time, it's a pretty successful strategy, because if I start looking for first all the ones, oh, there's just one here. Now I start looking for the 2s. Oh, only 2 2s here. Now I look for the 3s. And then for each of these digits, 1 through 9, I have to analyze everything. And that's not really very helpful. At least not to me it isn't, because what's helpful is to look at numbers in combination with other numbers. And that strategy yields results more often than not. So where were we? Well, we were down here somewhere. So now these 2 squares can only be a 1 and a 2. And this 2 blocks down, so the 1 is going here and the 2 here, of course. I immediately look up. Here's a 2, here's a 2, and here's a 2. Now I know that I only need 3 digits here, so I allow myself to just scan and see if I can figure out which one they are and if I can actually place a digit. I need a 1, 3, and a 9. And the 1 can't go here, and the 1 can't go here. So here's a 1. And this is now a 3 and a 9. And that's as far as I can take those 2 squares at the moment. But I am aware that this 3 blocks over, that one of these must be a 3. And while I'm contemplating that, I'm looking at other digits as well. Because apart from the 3, we still need a 7 and a 9. And we do have a 7 blocking down here, so a 7 must go here or here. That may not sound very helpful, but it's something that kind of sticks in my brain, at least for the duration of the puzzle. Here's another little strategy that I employ. I'm looking at these digits here, and now I'm looking at these columns, because we need to find squares for these 4 digits in these columns. We can already have the 3 and the 5. I can see that immediately. So now I'm only concentrating on the 4 and the 9. And I immediately see that we have a 4 and a 9 blocking these 2 squares. So it's clear that these 2 squares must be a 4 and a 9. So the next thing I do is I look across here. Can I place a 9 here or here? Because clearly a 9 can't go here or here. And I can't see any 9s being placed here at the moment. So I'm just going to be happy that I found the 4 and the 9 here. And now I look across here and I see, well, a 1 must go here or here. A 6 I don't really know about, and a 7 also. Now the 8, there's an 8 blocking over here and up here. So one of these could be an 8, but now I know that one of these is a 4 or a 9. So an 8 clearly can't go here, ergo it must go here. This 8 now blocks up, as does this, and these two 8s block across. So here's an 8. And we know from earlier that the other digit must be a 7. And now this 7 blocks down, so therefore a 7 must go here or here. And here, of course, we also have a 7 somewhere. And actually, these being a 4 and a 9, we know that these must be a 1, 7, and a 6. So we got a 6 blocking up and a 7 blocking down. So these have to be a 6 and a 7. And therefore, this must be a 1. I'm hoping that all of this makes sense. It's just a description of how my brain functions when I solve sudokus. And of course, I admit that this sudoku is very easy, but my strategy is exactly the same for all sudokus until they become so difficult that I have to use pencil marks and employ patterns that I don't really need for this level. And I think that you might agree that this is much faster than first inputting a lot of pencil marks only to erase them later on. Now I'm looking across here and I'm looking for a 7, 9, and a 6. This, I know, must be a 7 or a 6. 7 can't go here, but 7 could. So here we are going to have a 6 or a 9. And I think we established the fact earlier that one of these must be a 6 because we have the 6 blocking over and the 6 blocking over. So it's really a no-brainer to remember that a 6 must go here somewhere. Once I arrive at a point where I don't really see an easy next digit, I'm looking a little closer. One thing that I notice now is that this 2 blocks here. We got a couple of 2s blocking here, and therefore the only square that can be a 2 in the first column is here. Now we can place a 2 in this block, because this 2 blocks up, therefore a 2 must go either here or here, and that will block down. So here's a 2. Now these 2 squares must be a 1 and a 7. And we know that these 2 squares must be a 4 and a 9. Therefore, these 2 squares must be a 6 and a 2. And that's not extremely helpful now, except that if these are a 6 and a 2, then it follows that this must be a 1. This 1 blocks up, this 1 blocks across, and here is another 1, which blocks across, and this blocks across. We got 1 blocking up, so one of these is going to be a 1. This 3, by the way, blocks over, so here's a 3, and we have a 3 blocking up here, and a 3 blocking over, and another 3 blocking over, so here's a 3. This is now a 2, 6, and a 2, 6. Here we are looking for a 1, 9, and a 4. And I can't place them, but now I know that these have to be a 2 and a 6 pair. For these 3 squares, we are still looking for a 3, 9, and a 7. 3 blocks over, 3 blocks over, 3 blocks down, so here's a 3. Now 2 3s block down, so here's another 3. Here we just now need a 7 and a 9. The 7 blocks down, so here's a 9, and here's a 7, and we know that one of these had to be a 7. Now we know it's going to be this one, and the 1 goes here, and therefore this is a 1. Which blocks up, this blocks over, so here's the last one. These two now must be a 9 and a 6. Can we do anything with these 3 squares? There must be a 6, 9, and a 7. Yes, a 7 blocks up, so here's a 7. And here's an interesting observation which you really must know and take advantage of in many, many puzzles. We know that one of these must be a 9, and we know that one of these must be a 9. Therefore, this square has got to be a 9. because we need a 9 for this row as well. So this is a 9, and that automatically makes this a 6, and this a 7, which now blocks over while we have this 7 blocking down, making this a 7. We're still looking for a 4 and a 9 here, and we're looking for a 6 and a 9 here. Here now, we are looking for a 6 and a 4. We have a 6 blocking over, so the 4 must go here and the 6 here. And that solves a whole lot of stuff, because now this cannot be a 6. It must be a 9, making this a 9, and this a 4, and this a 6. And the reason we can enter these rapidly is that we've analyzed it already. So it's clear where things have to go. What's going up here is a 4, which can't go here, must go here, and a 9. This 9 blocks over, so does this. So here's another 9, and these are 2s and 6s. We know that from earlier. Here we're also looking for 2s and 6s. We can't solve immediately any of these 4 squares, so we have to look elsewhere. We don't even have to continue looking here because we can't solve them yet. So we'll have to look elsewhere. So let's try here. That has to be a 6 and a 9. We now have this 9 blocking down. So here's a 6, and here's the 9. This 6 blocks up, so now we know that a 6 goes here, and a 2 here, and here's a 6. Here we're looking for a 4. The 4 blocks up, so a 4 must go here, and here we're looking for a 2. And we solved the puzzle. This is exactly the way that I solve puzzles, whether I record them for uploads to YouTube or whether I just solve them as a leisure activity when I just need to relax for a few moments. Everyone probably has their own methods, but this is mine. And if you can benefit from viewing a puzzle like this, I call it a holistic view of the puzzle, then I think that it might help you improve your solving speed and also the satisfaction that you get from solving puzzles without using pencil marks. Thank you for being with me this far, and I hope that you come back for more soon. Bye for now.